Hi, welcome to Morningsun Herb Farm. My name is Rose Loveall. I own Morningsun Herb Farm, a small specialty nursery located in Northern California. Welcome to our 8-week series all about herbs. This is week 4, all about lemon herbs. In week 1, we talked about basil. Week 2, we discussed the 5 essential herbs for your culinary garden. They were rosemary, parsley, oregano, sage, and thyme. And last week we talked all about container and raised bed gardening for herbs. This week we're going to talk about my favorite herbs, the lemon flavored herbs. Now the first question is why? Why talk all about lemon? Why would that be so important? So, we know the lemon. This is my Genoa lemon, and many herbalists consider lemons to be herbs because they do have a lot of really great medicinal qualities. Lemon is this flavor and this scent that we all have some background with, that we can all figure out how to cook with it or how to use it in our everyday lives. So the nice thing about lemon is you can incorporate it into sweet, which is something I'm great at because I love desserts. You can incorporate it into really spicy. So think about a hot, spicy curry with lemongrass and how wonderful that lemongrass kind of cools it down. You can add lemon flavors into savory foods. So think of a pesto, which we're going to look at here in a minute. It can be refreshing. It can be a tea time type of herb. It can be something to help kind of ground you and make you sleepy. So the idea of lemon we can use in all aspects of our lives. So we're going to move away from just lemon, the fruit, today, and we're going to look at different lemon herbs. In week 1, we talked about my favorite basil, and I cut a little bit of it today. I cut most of it a few days ago because I made lemon basil pesto, which I told you is my favorite, and of course, I made some. And this is the time when I wish that I could actually share the flavor with you and share the scent with you. So here's what's left of my lemon basil pesto. Really delicious. You notice I kind of leave things a little bit chunky. It's delicious, it's wonderful, it's ready for anything you want to put it on. Here we can just use it for a cracker, but last night I actually put it on shrimp and a little bit of pasta and some bread. Why not? Put it on everything. So I'm going to eat this first, which is a crazy idea because then I'm going to have green in my teeth, right? But it's worth it when you look at pesto. Oh, I love it. You don't have to put much garlic in this pesto. You really bring out the lemon flavor. It's just totally refreshing. I mean, I'd almost put this on ice cream, almost. It's that delicious. So we talked a lot about basils already. I'm just going to kind of cover it really briefly again. This plant, we use a lot of water, a lot of fertilizer. That's the number one thing. This is so beautiful and lush because it gets fertilized even in the raised bed we planted it in every 2 weeks and watered about twice a week. Much more so than our perennial herbs that we look at. So lemon basil. You could also use this for a tea. Again, we're going to talk a lot about tea today when we talk about lemon herbs because they all make wonderful teas. So we're not going to focus on basil today since we have about a dozen different herbs to cover. The second herb we're going to talk about is thyme. And so when we looked at those 5 essential herbs, and thyme was one of them, we looked at mostly the upright thymes, although we also looked at this cascading lemon thyme too. And this is the one I actually used for cooking today. So one of the interesting things about thyme is people go, well, I don't really cook much with thyme because I don't know what to do with it. And remember, thyme is the herb that when you're in doubt, use thyme for cooking. And people also say, I do not want to pick every darn leaf off of this thing because look how tiny they are. So if you have a stem like this cascading lemon thyme, you can always pull it off like that. And that way you can chop it up fine, and even that small stem isn't going to be a problem for it at all. You can also just leave it whole. So for example, this is my dinner tonight that we're seeing. I'm going to make a lemon chicken salad, And I've got 2 different lemon herbs on here. You can see the whole stems I put here of the lemon basil. It's fine to leave them whole stem, and then when you go to cook them, you can take those stems off. And there's lots of herbs that you actually do remove once you've cooked them. So you don't have to be so meticulous and take everything off the main stem. The nice thing about thymes is that they are all mild in their flavor, so you don't have to feel like you only use a little bit when you're cooking with it. Thyme is also a nice one for rounding out other flavors. So I used lemon thyme with this because I wanted that lemon thyme flavor. I also used an herb that we talked about in week 3 a little bit when we looked at our raised beds. This is lemon savory. So this is Saturgia biflora. There's other more popular savories, but this one, lemon savory, seems to be a new one in the world. It's not really, it's been grown for a long time. Oh, if you don't live on the West Coast, or if you don't live in California, you'll probably have to treat this one like an annual. But lemon savory is well worth growing. You can see it's coming into the flower here with these beautiful little pinkish white flowers. You would go ahead and cut the flowers off, and you can see how I'm just pruning them off here to keep the plant going. I do like to let it bloom a little bit though, because it does bring in a lot of bees. And then like thyme, it's these small leaves that you're going to use. People go, why would I use lemon savory? What is it? And why do I want to cook with it? Lemon savory is the flavor of lemon and pepper. Lemon and pepper. So when you think of lemon and pepper, you see how I can just pull it right off the stem there, just like I did the thyme, and then chop that up. Lemon and pepper. Chicken, which is why I put tons of this in my chicken today. Fish, it's amazing for fish. Summer vegetables, zucchini, chop it into your tomato salad. If you use pepper, and right, every recipe that's savory calls for pepper, why wouldn't you use lemon pepper? Why wouldn't you use lemon savory? It's wonderful for summer cooking. It's light and mild and refreshing in its flavor. So it's excellent to use for these kinds of dishes. Easy to grow, so just like the thyme, you would grow this in a nice sunny location. It doesn't get very big, it only gets about 10 inches tall, so you can grow it in a container. That's one of the best things about it, or a small raised bed. If you're in California, it's going to be a perennial. If you're living in the Midwest or the East Coast, you're going to treat this one like an annual, or you're going to bring it inside during the winter. So both of these have a little bit different flavor. They both complement each other when you cook with them together. The lemon thyme has that little bit of a warm flavor to it with lemon, and the lemon savory has that peppery flavor with it. So you get a very complex mix with just a couple of different herbs. The third lemony herb I want to talk to you about today is lemongrass. Now last week we saw that donkeys love lemongrass. That was quite clear from their munching away on it. But people love lemongrass too. Lemongrass is a useful herb both for cooking and for medicinal purposes. There are 2 different lemongrasses you can grow in your garden. The first one is this thick fleshy one, West Indian lemongrass. It's Cymbopogon citratus. This is the one that you use more often for cooking because you get this big fleshy base to it. And so this is used a lot in curries and Southeast Asian cuisine. The second species you can use is Cymbopogon flexulis, East Indian lemongrass. This one, even in California, is oftentimes just an annual that we grow here. So it never gets very thick. You can see how this one's very thin. We grow this one from seed. The other one we grow only from cuttings. This one we grow from seed, and when you cut it, again, I wish this was a scratch and sniff episode because, oh my gosh, it's like sweet lemon. It's like lemon candy sweet. It's delicious. So this is a great one for tea when you know you're just going to grow this one as an annual. You're going to replace it every year. So this one for tea, not so much for cooking because you'll never get a thick fleshy base, but it's wonderful. If I was going to make an ice cream, this would be the one I would use. And that's one of the things about lemon herbs that I love to always think about is they bring back these memories. And this lemon in particular, everyone seems to have a memory from childhood or from an event or something in their life. So many years ago, I was in Bali and I had the most spectacular dessert on the planet. It was lemongrass sorbet served in a coconut. And I'm sure it was the East Indian lemongrass because it had that really lovely sweet lemon candy flavor to it. It was the most refreshing thing. Every time I think about it, I think of yoga in the morning and snorkeling in the afternoon and hanging out in a cabana all day. So it's my great memory with lemongrass. Last week we looked at the lemongrass in our big raised bed, and I dug a piece out, easy to dig out. Here it's actually got a little bit of a root attached to it, so you can see that easily you could actually transplant this big piece and move it to a new location. If you're making tea out of it, you would use the top portion, these long pieces here. Or if you're feeding it to your donkey, this is the part you would use. But if you're cooking with it, you're going to use this fleshy bottom part here. So this fleshy bottom part is the part that you see when you're actually looking at Thai cuisine or Vietnamese cuisine. This is the part they use. So lemongrass is easy to grow in California. If you're in the Midwest or if you're in the East Coast, you're going to actually want to bring it inside. It is a subtropical plant, so in California it can go down to about 20 degrees and still do okay, but it doesn't really like snow. So you would treat it like an annual. It's a fabulous grass, and it's this center part here. It's kind of pithy, kind of fibrous. This is what you would use for cooking. Now obviously this doesn't taste very good if you try to chew on this, so you would remove this from whatever you're cooking, whether it's a curry or a soup or in your chicken, because it's very hard and fibery even when you're done cooking with it. Easy to grow though, easy to use. It has that great lemon scent to it. There's a lot of other reasons why you would grow lemongrass though, and the number one reason, other than cooking, is as an insect repellent. So planting lemongrass plants around where you live and where you like to hang out in the evening time is perfect for repelling mosquitoes. Both of these lemongrasses you can grow easily in your garden. Remember that outside of California, they're both going to be not very winter hardy. They both work very well as a mosquito and insect repellent also. And they both work well in containerized gardens, as we saw in last week's video, but also in any sort of a container. They like to be in a container that's kind of too small for them in a way. And you can grow them in the ground. They grow in the sun, they grow in part shade, they grow under very wet conditions, they'll grow in heavy clay, they'll grow in sandy soils. So everyone tends to shy away from them because they think they're too difficult to grow. They're actually very easy to grow. The only thing that does them in is too much cold. So we're going to stick with this idea of insect repellent, and we're going to move on to a couple herbs that can be used for insect repellent that have that lemon scent to them. First, we'll discuss this little fun guy here. This is lemon catnip. Now everyone is familiar with catnip. Makes your cat crazy, makes them drool, makes them run around in circles, and then they fall down and fall asleep. Catnip also has an interesting effect on humans, not quite so crazy. It actually helps you to sleep. It's great for the central nervous system. So it's a really fun one to turn into a tea. The only thing is if you've tasted or smelled regular catnip, it has kind of a skunky smell, perhaps you'd call it. So you add this lemon to it though, and it's got this nice refreshing lemony scent to it. It's a fun one to use for tea making for kids because it's a good relaxant for the central nervous system, and it's a good natural sleep enhancer. So the wonderful thing about lemon catnip is you can use it to help get back to sleep or get to sleep in the evening. But in the morning time, you don't have any ill effects. So it's great for kids, great for the elderly. It's great for anyone, really. If you don't like tea, or if the kids you're trying to get to sleep a little bit aren't tea drinkers, you can always add this to a little bit of honey and warm up the honey a little bit. And then you can have a little container of honey that you add a little honey to, like some warm milk, for example, in the evening time. And that warm honey will be the holder of all of the loveliness of this lemon catnip, and this will help them sleep. So it's a wonderful way. If you can't sleep at night and you don't want to take anything strong or horrible for your body, try some lemon catnip. It's also excellent as an insect repellent. So we can use this along with our lemon grasses to help keep away mosquitoes in particular. Other insects as well. The one thing to remember about catnip, lemon catnip, is that the nicest way to say it is that it's a joyous reseeder, which means watch out. It will go to flower, and it will produce a beautiful little pink flower, and then about 3 days later, if you haven't paid attention to it, it puts on about 10 million seed, and they go everywhere, and you have a whole garden of catnip. So to prevent that from happening, prune back your catnip. Use it for, if you are crafty and you make things like little pillows, you can use it for little pillows for your cats. You can dry it, and then you can prune it way the heck back. This always astonishes people. They go, oh my gosh, you've killed it. But see all that beautiful new growth? And so remember, that beautiful new growth is going to have the next really wonderful constituents. If you just leave this up here all the time, once it gets kind of old and sun-beaten, it won't have those essential oils in it anymore. So then it gets that kind of waxy, skunky flavor back. So prune it back, use this, and then start again with this beautiful new plant. So catnip, sun or shade, indoors, outdoors, it's a wonderful one for growing. Here's a plant that we don't want to ingest. This is Eucalyptus citriodora, lemon eucalyptus. This is an unusual herb, has that wonderful lemony scent, but you get that eucalyptus underneath, strong eucalyptus scent. This is excellent insect repellent. So if I was going to make an insect repellent with 3 herbs, these would be the 3 right here. This will get into a small tree, this eucalyptus, this catnip, and the lemongrass. And as a matter of fact, one of our local businesses makes this wonderful, they call it Be Gone insect repellent. And the main ingredients in it are eucalyptus, lavender, lemongrass, and catnip. So it's really wonderful to use as an insect repellent. You can either grow the plants, have full plant potential for keeping insects away, or you can infuse them into an oil that you would put on your skin, or you can infuse them into an oil that you would put in with a little bit of aloe to be kind of soft and gentle on the skin. You can, of course, purchase these things individually as essential oils, but why not just grow the plants? And you can use some of them for cooking, some of them for your kitty cat or your kids or your grandkids, and this beautiful, unusual eucalyptus tree that you could also use as cut branches if you wanted to do some flower arranging during the summertime. So easy to grow, 3 wonderful herbs. One of our most common herbs that we grow is lemon balm, Melissa officinalis. This is one of those herbs that is all giving. So some people love it and some people have 1 plant of it and they curse me probably for the rest of their life because it is a joyous reseeder. It really spreads everywhere. It's a member of the mint family, has that square stem. It doesn't really grow out many feet away from the base, but it'll slowly clump out, and then you add to that about 10 trillion seeds here and a few million seeds there, and you suddenly have a whole garden of lemon balm. So it's kind of interesting because I always tell people one of the most wonderful things about lemon balm is that it's a relaxant, and yet people like run around screaming at lemon balm because they're ripping it out of their garden here and there. So I always remind people, as you rip it out, make tea. Tea is one of those things that I used to not think about much, but really you can have hot tea, you can have iced tea. This is a tea that has lemon balm, a little bit of lemongrass, which we talked about earlier, and a little bit of spearmint in it. So it's nice because it's got those lemony herbs which have that refreshing flavor, but it's also got some spearmint. So it's going to kind of help kick up the flavor. I love the lemon balm I just ripped out of the garden for the last hour. See how relaxing it makes me feel. So lemon balm is an important herb for us. It is an antiviral, it's an antibacterial, it's great for digestion, it's wonderful for kids' issues, it's used a lot when you have colds and flus and fevers. So all of those things, it's tea, tea, tea. So it's an easy one to use, it's an easy one to prune back. I take my handy dandy clippers to it, and you saw me use this on the catnip. Same thing. Lemon balm, don't let it win. Just cut it back. Prune it back so you get all new foliage. The leaves have this wonderful scent. Again, I wish you could smell each one of these, because the nice thing about the lemon herbs is every one has a different lemon scent to it. So this is a grassy lemon. This is like running through a field of hay type of smell, with that wonderful light lemon thrown in. I like to take baths with lemon balm. It's really good for the skin. And again, since it calms you down, by the time I get out of that bath, I don't care that my muscles are sore because I spent the last 3 hours ripping lemon balm out of my garden. I'm happy about it. It's also a great one for cooking. So I made banana nut bread, but instead of just bananas and walnuts, why not add some other things to it? So this banana nut bread also has lots of lemon balm chopped up into it, and a little bit of that lemon thyme we talked about earlier. So you can really get a little bit different flavor, a little bit different scent. Again, I used it here for something sweet, but a lot of times people use lemon balm in marinades for salads because, again, it brings out kind of a grassy flavor to it. So it's a really wonderful one for teas, for cooking. It's a bit of a, you don't want to call it a weed, it's rambunctious in its nature. So prune it back, cut it back, give some to your friend, give some to your enemy, give some to your frenemy, give some away. Just know that it's a really good herb to include. The name Melissa officinalis, Melissa is bee. So it's a bee plant. So if you do raise bees, you want to make sure you include this plant, because the little pink flowers may not look like much to you, but to a bee, they are incredible, incredible flowers full of nectar. So it's a wonderful one. Make sure you include it. Make sure you cook with it. Give it to your donkeys. I always say that because everyone should have donkeys. Give it to your compost pile, throw it on the ground, let it compost in place as you kind of smash your feet against it. It'll keep you nice and calm. And now I have to talk about my favorite herb on the entire planet, lemon verbena, Aloysia triphylla. It is the best herb. It is the only herb I will grow if I can only grow one. So if I'm stuck on a deserted island, this is the one I'm taking with me. Lemon verbena is just this wonderful little plant. Here it is in this 4-inch pot. Has what I consider the truest and most amazing lemon scent. It will get 8 feet tall. It's a big bush. This is native to Peru and Chile. It is a New World plant. So there's not a long history behind it, really, as far as medicine making goes. I just love it because why not? This is the plant to grow. So in a tactile garden, I love to include it because it's the one thing that people just go, what is it? And it's amazing. We grow it like a rose bush here in California. So in California, you let it bloom, you let it do its whole thing through the season, and then all of a sudden in the wintertime, it loses all of its leaves. It goes completely dormant, and it will come back usually early April. You prune it way back just like a rose bush. It is not dead, it is just dormant. If, however, you're on the East Coast or the Midwest, somewhere where you get a snow load, if you're zone 7 or lower, you will treat it as an annual. You're going to bring it into your house or into your, somewhere where you can keep it nice and dry and warmer, and it will come back each year. We've had our stock plant for 25 years, so for a long time. Why do I love lemon verbena? The number one reason is it is my favorite tea. So this is lemon verbena and hibiscus tea. Nothing else added to it, just lemon verbena, leaves, hibiscus, and water. So the pink color is because of the hibiscus, and then that wonderful lemon. Oh, it's completely refreshing. It's easy to grow, it's easy to use. At the nursery, we actually make what we call spa water. And so our spa water, which sounds really expensive, is just a whole bunch of leaves that we throw into the container early in the morning, add a bunch of water, leave it sit for an hour, squeeze out the leaves, add a few more just for decoration, and then add some more water and ice and spa water. And people say, oh my gosh, what all do you put in it? And it's literally just lemon verbena leaves. Lemon verbena can also be used for tea making though. It can be used for ice cream making. And you can use it for savory foods. So you would take stems of it like this, and you would actually stuff the entire thing into the center of a chicken if you're roasting a whole chicken. You can use individual leaves for cooking. One of the things to remember though is that it has this really thick central vein. So if you try to cook with this, what you find is that you have that really thick central vein. So a lot of times the easiest thing to do is to chop the central vein out if you're going to do any cooking with it. Marinades, jams, jellies, it goes great with all kinds of fruit. So if you're making a blackberry pie this summer, why not infuse it first with these lemon verbena leaves, and you can have a blackberry pie with lemon verbena. I do a peach jam that I infuse with the lemon verbena. It is out of this world. It's my favorite jam. So it's my favorite jam from my favorite plant in the whole world. Again, it gets big, 8 feet. But what we find is that most people, once they discover the beauty and how delicious this plant is, they keep it pruned back pretty far. So it starts at 8 feet, but oftentimes during the season, you keep it very small. You can grow it in a container very easily. It does well in a pot. Everyone says it needs a lot of water, but we only water it once a week in our garden. So it actually is fairly drought tolerant once it's established. It is extremely long-lived. Our stock plant that we take all of our little babies from was planted in 1995, 25 years ago, 30 years ago, a long time ago. So one plant can last you your whole life. Now we grow a lot of mints. Some mints we love, some mints are a bit invasive. We actually grow one that's called Hillary's Lemon Mint. It's not as popular of a mint, has a bit of a furry leaf to it, and it has a bit of a strong smell. It's a heavy citrus scent. It's actually really delicious. It is just as invasive as every other mint you can think of. So you keep this one in a container for sure when you're growing it. A little shade is perfect for it, and it's great as a tea herb. So it would also be a wonderful thing if you're making your mojito. Why not try a little something different in your mojito and muddle the lemon mint instead of the regular spearmint and have a lemony mint mojito. Nice for a summer day when you want a little bit of a change up, want something nice and refreshing. Again, you plant it and you put it in a container. Closely related is the Monarda citriodora. This is called lemon bergamot. Now, this is the beginning of May, so it's before its flower time. If it was the middle of June, you'd see these beautiful purple flowers that are in long whorls that the honeybees love, and so do the hummingbirds. So you definitely want to grow this where you have hummingbirds, honeybees that can come to it. It also has a wonderful lemony flavor. So again, this would be another tea herb you would grow. And this one again, totally different lemon flavor to it. Totally different lemon scent. This is definitely like a strong hay scent with the lemon. So totally, totally different. This is one you use with your Earl Grey tea, for example. And when you see the flowers, you'll want to grow this one because the flowers are edible and you can use it as part of your tea as well. So two minty based lemon flavors. Both of them are wonderful for cooking. They're both a little invasive. You can see how this one is kind of growing sideways in the pot already. So generally you want to grow these in containers, these two plants here. One of our funnest genera to work with is Augustaki, or Augustaceae, depending how you want to say it. It's the Hysop genus. Now again, a little bit later in the season, this is going to be all about its edible flowers. This is Augustaki mexicana, and I've got one called Champagne with a pink flower, a light pink flower, and one called Sangria with a deep crimson red flower. These both have this amazing lemon scent. And it's a lemon mint scent. It's very different. It's almost bubblegummy in its characteristic. These are both wonderful tea plants. They can be grown in containers. They only get about 20 inches tall. They have beautiful blooms that also have that lemony flavor to them. So if you're looking to do some edible flowers, this is a good possibility. And they're nice for sun gardens, and they're good in containers. So lots of different possibilities here with these kinds of lemony herbs. We even have a lavender with a lemon scent to it. This is Lavandula pinnata. This is native to the Canary Islands, so it's not very winter hardy. The least winter hardy of all of the lavenders. You can see it starting to bloom. A lot of people wouldn't even think it was a lavender when they were looking at that blossom. Butterflies love this lavender, so that's a little unusual. Most lavenders don't attract a lot of butterflies. But the interesting part is, first of all, that foliage doesn't look like a lavender, but it has a lavender lemon scent. It's so unusual. So this one, for most of the country, we grow it as an annual. It's a big blooming annual. It blooms from April until November, and then usually the first really cold night, it's gone. But in the meantime, you can grow it somewhere where you're going to brush up against it, and you'll get the scent of lemon and lavender together. It's very unusual, worth growing as an annual. I wouldn't cook with this because it has a little bit of an odd lavender flavor to it, not our traditional English lavender that we love so much. But to just enjoy as a container plant, it really can't be beat. A little unusual looking, and it's one that you would replant in most countries, most parts of the country. Easy to grow though in sun, or interestingly, this one can grow in some shade as well. We have to end with the scented geraniums. There are so many scented geraniums, so many different fragrances. I'm always surprised when I run into people who've never heard of scented geraniums. So a little bit of history of scented geraniums is most of them are native to South Africa. So imagine what the botanists rounding the Cape of Good Hope when they jumped off the ships and they were busy plucking plants to take back to Europe with them, and they came across these incredible plants that smelled like roses, or in the case of these three, lemon. How must that have felt to them to find these plants that smelled so fabulous? So of course they took back seeds, they took back cuttings, they traveled to Europe with them, and they became so popular throughout Europe. First of all, they were done mostly as houseplants because in Northern Europe anyway, they would be annuals. Here in Central California, most of them are hardy perennials. They're easy to grow, and there's lots of different scents. So I want to focus on 3 different lemon scents here. This one here is called Maple Gray, and look at that beautiful leaf. It's super hardy. It's very rough looking. And when you smell it, oh my gosh, to me it's kind of like lemon pledge. I mean, I'm not a big house cleaner, but to me it has that cleanly smell of lemon pledge. I will rub this on myself. First of all, because it is, again, a good mosquito repellent. Maybe it brings on a little romance, who knows? Smells delicious, and you can use it for cooking. So this one's maple gray. This one with the tall, slender branches, this is lemon crispem, very small leaves, and it was traditionally used in finger bowls. And probably most of us don't know about finger bowls, but apparently you would float these little leaves in your little bowl of water next to your plate when you were at a fine dinner, and between servings of food you would take your fingers and you'd put it in the water that it was scented with the lemon geranium, and that would cleanse your fingers, cleanse your hands, and make them smell good. So it's also called finger bowl lemon geranium. And then this little guy, which oftentimes people think looks a bit like a tomato leaf, this is lemon rose. So this has both the scent of lemon and the scent of rose in it. Oh, it's so wonderful. So lemon geraniums and all the scented geraniums actually go in and out of favor and popularity. They're great for cooking. They're super thick leaves, so you usually don't think about literally eating the leaf like you would parsley or basil or thyme. You usually use it to scent something and then you pull it out. So for example, I have some sugar. So you layer the scented geraniums with the sugar, leave them in there for a couple weeks, put it in a dark location. You might shake it around a couple times. And then after a couple of weeks, you would just sieve out all of the leaves, and then you use the scented sugar. So suddenly you have this lemon sugar, and here I use the maple gray, or you could do the lemon rose, and you could use the sugar for anything. If you're making scones or sugar cookies, or if you're making any sort of a shortbread, they're wonderful for shortbread. Easy to use. You can just use it in your tea or your coffee. So you would leave that for just a couple of weeks. Wonderful to use and easy to grow. So the scented geraniums, again, they're very thick. A lot of times what I will do if I'm making a cake, for example, I'll take the leaves and I would put the leaves on the bottom where I'm going to put the cake or the bread mix, and then I would pour it on top of that, and you bake it, and then when you flip it over, you can pull the leaves off. So in the meantime, it scents the entire cake, and we do this a lot of times with pound cake. So really wonderful. If you're making a creme brulee, you can take your milk beforehand, or rice pudding. Oh, lemon scented rice pudding is fabulous. So you can just soak it into the milk beforehand and then use that. And of course, my favorite, ice cream. You know I'm always going to say the word ice cream every time I can possibly do it. These grow great in containers. People do use them as indoor plants, so long as they get a little bit of sunlight. They work great outdoors. If you're in USDA zone 9 and above, you're safe. 8 for some of them. Otherwise, you would bring them inside if you're on the East Coast or the Midwest. There are more lemon-scented geraniums than these 3, but these are 3 of my favorites. I also love these because they put out really long branches. So for example, this one actually will grow to a branch that's about 20 inches long. And it's great to just insert this along with your flowers in a bouquet. So if you're doing a bouquet, the flowers may or may not have a great scent to them, but what if you can add the foliage that does have the scent? So it's wonderful to use them just even as a great bouquet, or put them in a tactile garden. They're great in a children's garden. We'll even dry them and use them as a potpourri. So I love to finish with the scented geraniums because they're one of those things that people don't think about. Geraniums are smelly to most people. These are actually pelargoniums is the correct name. They are a member of the geranium family, but they're different than the Martha Washington or the regal geraniums we're used to growing. Easy to grow, and they really give back. So you can take cuttings, share them with friends, you can dry them, you can use them for cooking, mosquito repellent, potpourri blends, all kinds of things. So I would suggest This would be an important one to include in every garden, even if you just have a few pots to fill on a patio, because they can take even a little bit of shade. So I hope I've piqued your interest a little bit in growing some or maybe all of these great lemon herbs. They each have their own characteristic, some great for cooking, some great for mosquitoes, some really great for ice cream, we all now know. And a lot of them are just great to have in your garden because they smell good, they make you feel relaxed and refreshed. They're just wonderful to include. Next week, we're going to talk about the ethnic herbs. You can find out the herb that makes this beautiful tea pink. What is shiso? And is there actually another thing you can use for cilantro that you can grow year-round? Join us next week to learn all about these wonderful ethnic herbs. If you're enjoying this video series, please share it with a friend. Also, if you have any questions, you can visit us online at morningsunherbfarm.com. We've got all the recipes that I talked about today, plus a lot more to share with you. Next week.
Next week. Last week, it was all about basils.
Week 1. Yeah, because this won't look pretty shooting through my nose. Next week. Here's the blooper roll.